Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to be a little bit different in the sense that it's going to be more conversational. And the reason for that is because I'm recording this on a Sunday and there's not really any news to cover. So I'm going to focus on something that I've been thinking about for a long time, but I think it's become more relevant now if you look at especially what played out over the last 10 days in South Africa, specifically with mainstream media and even more specifically with Media24 / News24. Now, if you haven't heard by now, there's going to be retrenchments that's going to take place at Media24 / News24. And that is because Naspers has realized that, this organization is costing them 850,000 Rand a day, over 320 million Rand lost over the last financial year. And Naspers, for the longest period of time, has allowed this to continue. And the reason that I believe that this is the case is because Naspers didn't care so much about the profit that Media24 and News24 could generate for it, but rather the influence that it had, the narrative that it could drive, the way that it could sway people's minds in this country. And this all came to a head this past Sunday. Now, before I get into the crux of this issue, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. It's absolutely free. It won't cost you anything. And the overwhelming majority of you that regularly watch my content aren't subscribed. But you can fix that by just clicking that subscribe button and smash the like button and share this video far and wide. It would be appreciated. So, last Sunday, News24 wrote this scathing piece on AfriForum. Clearly a smear campaign. Clearly trying to discredit AfriForum. And when you look at the response on social media and even, around the braai, the conversation that people had, they didn't believe News24 because News24 has made it very clear that over the last couple of years, they have become this organization that don't report on the news anymore. They create the news. And that is something that a news organization should never, ever strive to be. They should never ever strive to be the news. They should report on the news. And the negative feedback on social media and in person, and people just not believing what Adrian Basson and Pieter de Tooy have to say, just clearly illustrated that News24 doesn't have the power or the sway that they used to have. And this is what I believe has led to Naspers now deciding to retrench close to 10% of Media24. And of course, here is the elephant in the room. The editor-in-chief Adrian Basson and his senior editors like Pieter de Tooy is directly responsible for the state that News24 and Media24 is in right now. And yet when you look at who's going to be retrenched, who's going to be fired, I can guarantee you that it won't be Adrian Basson and Pieter de Tooy. Yet they are the ones that are actively responsible for the loss of revenue and the fact that people don't trust News24 anymore. But instead of their heads rolling or them doing the honorable thing and saying, hey, we are the cause for all of this loss of money, they're going to allow the people below them to take the hit. And it just speaks to their ethics. But we know that the lifestyle journalists and the sport journalists and editors are going to be the ones that suffer because of this. And the irony, of course, is that Solidariteit represents a large chunk of the staff at Media24 and News24. So the very organization that News24 is trying to smear every single chance they get are the ones that actually represent most of their journalists and the people that work for them. Now, what I want to know is how is it possible that as the editor-in-chief and senior editor like Adrian Basson, how are you not the first to go? Because the people that work below you don't have a say in which direction Media24 and News24 go in. So they don't have an influence over, whether you go left, whether you go right, whether you stay in the center. And yet they are the ones that have to suffer because of the decisions that were made by people like Adrian Basson and Pieter de Tooy and the other staff, like Carl Cohen, who's the investigative journalist. The list is endless of these people that are just willing to smear people to keep their salaries. And ultimately, now we are in this position, and asking them to do the ethical thing and the morally correct thing would definitely not happen. Because as much as they would like to report on the millions that some AfriForum people earn, which has been proven to be bullshit, the more they keep quiet about the millions that they earn to lie about people like AfriForum and Solidariteit and people on the right, and framing normal people in this country as right-wing individuals just because of the views that they hold. But this speaks to a broader issue as well, and something that I feel that if I ever had to make it back into a senior role in politics, that I would champion. And this is to hold mainstream media accountable. Because the one thing that I believe that hasn't happened in our democracy is the fact that media be held accountable for the lies that they spread, the narratives that they drive. Because in South Africa, we've got the press ombudsman. So if the media writes something negative about you, then you go to the press ombudsman and you try and get an apology or a retraction out of the publication, but only if that publication is registered with the press ombudsman. An example of this is IOL. They are not with the press ombudsman, so they can write whatever negative nonsense they want, and they never ever have to apologize. So that is like the one thing that I would immediately change. I would say that if you are a organization that is a media company in this country, you are forced to belong to an organization that can hold you accountable. Not an internal ombudsman, not this nonsense that, other media outlets have. No, there is one body that you have to respond, just like the Health Professions Council of South Africa. Doctors, nurses, psychologists, everybody has to adhere to the Health Professions Council of South Africa. Now, mainstream media, through the press ombudsman, manages to get away with murder because they can literally go and accuse you of the worst things, and then you, as an individual, have to go and fight them. You have to use your time, your resources, your money, if you ultimately decide to go that route. And all they have to do is just deny. And they've got lawyers on call. They've got people that just sit there and wait to be instructed. So as an individual, you are always on the back foot. How is that fair in our democracy? How is that an opportunity for somebody that has been wronged by the media to get their reputation cleared? They don't. They'll have to spend money, they'll have to spend their time, and they're fighting a losing battle. Let's use News24 as an example. Say you're an average Joe. Say that you are Jan Braai or Twatterbaas, and you have been wronged by News24. In order to legally take them on, you'll have to spend hundreds of thousands of rands, if not millions of rands, just to clear your name, just to prove that what they said was wrong. And who's got that type of money to get justice, if you will? And even the press ombudsman, the worst that they can do is tell them to apologize, tell them to retract it, and if they breached it too many times, then they can kick them out of the press council. But like I said, there are people that aren't even in the press council. So what real loss is it? So what I would do is I would firstly force, if I had to make it back to Parliament, or if I could influence it in some way, I would say that every media outlet has to be part of a body like the press ombudsman and like the Health Professions Council for medical practitioners. But then secondly, if you look at the Matlanga Commission and what it uncovered, in the police force and in the judiciary, I think that something like that also needs to be available for people that have been wronged by mainstream media companies, especially if these mainstream media companies are constantly found guilty of breaching the press code. I think that the average citizens in this country that don't have hundreds of thousands of rands to go the legal route or to protect themselves against companies that turn hundreds of millions of rands and have got lawyers on retainer, of course, that's not fair under our constitution. So I would even argue that once a year, we would have to have this Matlanga Commission where people that have, or the media companies that have breached the press code, that they have to go in front of that commission, and the people that they have wronged have an opportunity to go there and plead their case, bring all the evidence, and then the editors have to be called in. The senior editors and the journalists that decided to write negatively about people and that were found guilty by the press ombudsman, they have to explain themselves. And if they can't, then there should be some financial contribution towards the victims. I mean, what recourse does Twatterbaas have? What recourse does somebody like Jan Braai have? What recourse do I have after what IOL did to me? IOL was found guilty of breaching the press code on 4 different occasions with that insane article they wrote about me, where they took a video, they took 4% of the video and ran with that. And they've robbed me of my seat in Parliament indirectly. I mean, obviously it was the DA that terminated my membership, but if it wasn't for them reporting the way they did, who knows what would have happened. Now, that includes, the income that I've lost, the reputational harm. And I'm personalizing it because it happened to me. But I do think that mainstream media outlets get away with literal murder in this country. They can ruin somebody's reputation and there's no consequences. The worst consequence is that they can be kicked out of the press council. I mean, really, if that's the worst thing that can happen to them, what's the point? Because like I said, there are media companies that aren't even part of the press council. And I think that if we had to pass legislation that hold mainstream media companies responsible and accountable, and the editors and the journalists and the senior editors, then there would be a shift in how people are reporting on the news in this country. Because we know that most mainstream media outlets report on the news with a slant of trying to grab your attention because they want the clicks, because the clicks generate the ad revenue. Remember, I firmly believe that mainstream media companies exist first and foremost to turn a profit for their shareholders, and secondly to report on the news. And I would usually say report accurately on the news, but we know that that doesn't even happen anymore. There's not a lot of mainstream media outlets that are left in South Africa that actually do proper journalism. I would argue that Politics Web, Newsday, Truth Report, even though it's not mainstream media, those are pretty much who are you left with. And I mean, of course, Business Tech, My Broadband, I can list a couple. But the big ones, Daily Maverick, News24, IOL, these are all ones that just get away with murder every single opportunity they get, and there's no consequence management. And for the average Joe in the street that they talk negatively about, that they just completely smear like AfriForum and Solidariteit and accuse people of being right-wing, what do they have? They don't. And why don't we have a consequence management system for these media companies where the scales are completely in their favor due to the resources that they have? So this is something that I've been thinking about, and something that I would definitely drive if I had to make it back into Parliament or get a senior political position, because I think it's long overdue, the fact that the average Joe has to suffer while mainstream media just walk all over them. And I think it's just getting worse and worse. The more desperate mainstream media becomes to turn profits, the more you're going to see negative articles like this that is not based on actual news, but them wanting to create the news. So to bring it full circle again, Media24 is now retrenching at least 10% of their workforce. And of course, we know that Adrian Basson and the senior editors like Pieter de Tooy aren't going to be the first to go. It's going to be the people at the bottom, the ones that have no say in the day-to-day running of the business and steering it in the direction that it should go. And it's a crying shame. But hey, this is what happens when you live in this country and allow mainstream media to dictate what you should and should not think, and how they are trying to influence, what you should think. So be very careful of mainstream media outlets, and let's see if this can go further than just an idea and a concept that I've got. But that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to smash that like button, share this video far and wide. Don't forget to subscribe. It's absolutely free. It won't cost you anything. However, if you'd like to financially contribute to this channel, you can do so by giving a super thanks. Look for that $ sign below choose an amount, and thank you for that. Or you can become a member by clicking the join button below, and that'll be greatly appreciated. And that's all I got to say, everybody. Till later. Cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre.